the 7th Russian Grand Prix, where Lewis Hamilton has 4 wins in the past, where Mercedes have 6 wins out of 6 in the past, and where Pole has won 2 of the previous 6 races. Russia, the world's largest country, the federation occupying 1/10 of all the land on Earth. It spans 11 time zones across 2 continents. We've just gone past 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, and every single Russian Grand Prix has had a run about 7/10 of a second slower per lap, but it should last that little bit longer. And the hard tyre, 1.3 seconds slower per lap. Will that survive best in very hot track temperatures? So the run of 7 consecutive Mercedes front row lockouts has been ended. Lewis Hamilton's on pole. This time it's Max Verstappen alongside him. Red Bull's highest ever start in Russia. Valtteri Bottas has won from 3rd here before.
On page 3 of our timing screen to see if any messages and penalties come up. But it's an unusual risk to be taking when you're in such a position of strength.
Now, if the team have a reason for it and they can explain that to the stewards, it might be seen by the stewards as a minor infringement. It is a potential breach of what is Article
degrees. The track temperature, the wind has swung around, so this is something we heard the McLaren guys talking about all through the build-up, that the wind is something that they found tricky here. Bottas mentioning it as well. We now have a tailwind down towards turn 2.
Get back to Lewis Hamilton in a couple of seconds, but the tyre choices are now available for all to see. Charles Leclerc starts 10th, but because he didn't make Q3...
Down in 15th, starting on the soft. That's a racy choice for Red Bull.
Yeah, but they have to do it because he got into Q3, of course. But
yeah.
As racy as he will be, he might find himself in a position where he has to stop a lot earlier than he can feed back into a decent gap for.
That's right, but what I mean is that early part where he's got the grip, he can be racy, he can be aggressive, so watch out.
Lights out, and away we go. So Hamilton gets away well, as does Max Verstappen this week, but Valtteri Bottas is already ahead of him, and Daniel Ricciardo slots in the 4th, and Esteban Ocon has made up places from the start as well. It's a long run down towards turn 2, plenty of time to sort themselves out. Bottas is going round the outside of Lewis Hamilton, but he has to go wide, and it's the Red Bull there that goes straight on at Max Verstappen, and he's not the only one. Carlos Sainz, who was involved in the first lap accidents in Mugello, has gone through the bollards and has spun round as well. It's Hamilton at least from Bottas, Ricciardo, Verstappen. Ricciardo has made up a place as well.
I mean, superb first lap for them. We're gonna, I'm sure, get replays in a few moments' time. Let's think about the strategy here for a minute. If you're Alex Albon, you're way down in that queue, down in 17th on a set of soft tyres. I think Red Bull will bring him in, Crofty, get him off those tyres. He's anyway going to be in the trade. Put him onto a set of mediums or a set of the hard tyres at this stage.
Red Bull must be listening to you, because Alex Albon is coming into the pits, as is Lando Norris, as is George Russell as well. And we saw the very, very first Russian Grand Prix, Nico Rosberg lock up going into turn 2, switched onto the hard compound tyre, ran that tyre, which was a much harder hard compound tyre at that stage, for the rest of the race. So that's the strategy thinking.
He's been through that path through practice. He knew exactly where the wall was, but when the adrenaline is pumping in the Grand Prix, it's very different to practice.
And all around the world, people have just taken a metre back on their sofa as we rode on board with Carlos Sainz. We're now on board with Sebastian Vettel. Is there any room around this corner at all? Well, Sebastian's going to try and pick a point.
Yeah, but something's definitely not right. It keeps changing, like the steering goes really light to really heavy when I'm sitting right.
We didn't really see why Lando ended up back in the pack. I think maybe Ant back in London can have a look at the SkyPad as to what happened to Lando.
I mean, it looked to me initially like he was just backing off because he could see his teammate coming across him a little bit.
Yeah, but he's gone from 8th to 18th, and God, that was a busy first couple of laps, or first lap, wasn't it? And then I believe he had to avoid.
Whether it's done any damage to Lando's car, I'd be surprised if that's affected the steering that he's complaining about. But definitely riding on board with Sainz, he just tags the right rear of Lando's car, and that's why Lando has to lift off. And you see a jolt on his steering wheel just before the braking zone into that turn 2.
Thanks ever so much, Ant. 9 years since we last commentated on a Formula 1 race together, Karun Chandok. It's still just behind the safety car, 4 laps behind the safety car, because we're on lap 5. And Bert Meilander can go and put his feet up for a while. For how much longer, I'm not quite sure. And we've had 3 pit stops: George Russell, Alex Albon and Lando Norris, all coming in for a change of tyre and putting the hard compound tyre on. They theoretically could go to the end of the race.
Unlike last week where we saw Valtteri Bottas wait to accelerate at the end of the...
Flags are being waved, and when we get to the line, We can go racing once again here in Sochi. A dramatic opening. We lost Stroll and we lost Sainz. We've got 18 still running then. And down this kilometre-long main straight we go with Lewis Hamilton leading the field from Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen. There you can see the 1, 2, 3. Behind comes Esteban Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo. Charles Leclerc is right behind Pierre Gasly, and he seems to be very close, starting to pull away somewhat. Perez wants to get a bit closer to the two Renaults ahead of Ricciardo and Ocon, but he's not managing to do that. The field quite strung out on this first lap of racing. Now the safety car has gone. Lando Norris is the fastest man at the moment on the track, but that could all change around again as Norris actually gets past Alex Albon. There's a bit of pace there at the rear of the field for Norris on the hard compound tyre in the McLaren as they cross. The race steward, Gerd Enser, the chief steward in the box. The steward's box this weekend. It's a discretionary penalty because it's a breach of the race director's events notes, not necessarily the sporting regulations, but the stewards have decided, obviously, as they've given a 10-second penalty there, that it was deemed enough of a penalty to warrant that decision. Now, you said he can serve 5 seconds in his pits. My 277th Grand Prix as the AlphaTauri of Daniel Kvyat in his home race makes the move on Romain Grosjean and puts himself up into the points. He's only had 1 points finish at his home Grand Prix. Yeah, it's 277 Grand Prix. I've not seen two practice start the driver with the least amount of races on the grid. Kimi Räikkönen puts himself up into 14th place.
What's going on with Albon, Coffey? Still at the back of this train, and okay, they're going to try and get through the two Williams cars now, Norris and Albon, but he needs to start clearing through this pack on that set of hard tyres he's on. Just looking further up the front, Ocon holding his own ahead of Ricciardo, 9/10 gap between.
I wonder, he's obviously done it twice, hasn't he? If there's two violations, he's obviously done it twice because the drivers quite often do a couple of laps to the grid.
So that radio message implies to me, though, that they can do the 10 seconds.
Which they would have, which Ron Meadows, the sporting director of Mercedes, would have checked to see if that is possible to do.
This is going to really hurt him, Crofty, because to take 10 seconds...
that is the mantra, isn't it, amongst them all? You know, we can be great friends, but there's no place for friendship, really, when we're out there racing on the track. That Williams could be a very difficult car to overtake, because in a straight line it is fairly slippery at the hands there of George Russell. The key thing for these three, they've all made their pit stop. That's why they're running at the back at the moment.
I tell you what also impressed me was they were very respectful of each other. They gave each other room. You know, you didn't see them tagging the front wing.
Racing after the safety car, and it's still about 1.5 seconds, 2/3 of the way through this lap for the two Mercedes drivers. Crucially, Verstappen, saying he's struggling for grip, is 1.5 seconds back as well, and then 2.2 seconds back to Ocon, still holding his own in 4th place.
Yeah, I think now... Oh, big lock up there for George Russell, going fair.
His favour, and Hamilton, as the lap has gone on, has started to claw it back a bit, but look at the tyre performance. There's a lot of red there that Lewis Hamilton wouldn't want. Red striped soft tyre, and he is losing performance out of 3 of his 4 tyres at the moment.
Lewis, we're going to need to up the pace. So suggesting
respond to the message from his race engineer Pete Bonington, and the gap has started to go up a little bit. This is the last lap he'll have on these tyres for the moment, because they're getting ready in the Mercedes garage for his pit stop.
Do not stop me, Ali. Do not.
Or is it the last lap that he's going to have on these tyres? Because he does not want to come in, and we might see a rush from the garage into the pit and pound tyres. He's back out again on the set of mediums, a new set of mediums that he's got, and down to you.
Yeah, so listening on the team radio to Ocon, they're going to pit him in around 3 laps because they're monitoring the gap, guys, to Grosjean. That's their window. They want to come out in front of him. So let's see where Ricciardo pops out now.
And the gap between Ocon and Grosjean at the moment is about 20 seconds. Your pit lane. Ricciardo is making his way now towards the penultimate corner. He is coming out, Lewis Hamilton, of the pit lane. Now he can start to go that little bit faster. Ricciardo's just coming round the final corner to the end of the race, and at least he's got a bit of a gap to start putting in those lap times before he comes up to Sebastian Vettel, which will be the first car he needs to overtake.
Those 2 fastest laps he did, as we take a look at Lando Norris going down the inside of the Williams. Nice clean move. No.
Currently down to P11.
And Sebastian Vettel ahead of him there, as you can see. Grosjean has now pitted. Hamilton's up to 10th with Grosjean making that pit stop. Bottas has just set a new fastest lap of the race. He is lapping in a 1:39.4 and needs to keep lapping in the low 1:39s. Is now coming into the pits, and that car in front of Sebastian Vettel gets out of the way of Charles Leclerc, I should say, gets out of the way. That's Pierre Gasly. And you see sliding round Lewis Hamilton, turn 15 in pursuit of Sebastian Vettel. Leclerc, Vettel's teammate, goes up to 4th, Kvyat goes up to 5th, and we can see Esteban Ocon coming down the pits now. Can Esteban Ocon get out ahead of Lewis Hamilton? Let's head to Ant at Sky Race Control. Just before I do, Ant, I'm watching the times, Bottas and Hamilton. Bottas only 0.3 of a second faster than Hamilton on that last lap.
Yeah, so Hamilton's still questioning why they boxed him so early. But Bono came back to him and said, look, we had to guard ourselves from the undercut from the likes of Ocon, who we're watching on screen now. So that was their main concern. I don't know what he can do until at least
another 10 laps to make sure he comes out clear of Charles Leclerc when he does hitting his first pit stop.
Some confirmation from the FIA, because we get emails from them all the time when they make decisions. They email the journalists to let us know exactly why they made those decisions. It was 2 separate violations for Lewis Hamilton of exactly the same thing, stopping where he shouldn't have done to do a practice start, hence the 10-second
tires that he started the race on. Verstappen nearly a second slower than him on the lap they've just completed. And just look at where Hamilton is. So he's 39 seconds behind Bottas, which puts him about 32.5 behind Verstappen. Tell you what, they could end up in a situation where Verstappen is only about 7 seconds ahead of Hamilton. So that battle could...
The 2 Renaults, because Sebastian Vettel hasn't got the pace to live with Perez, and this track is not allowing for a lot of overtaking opportunities, and we've seen that an awful lot in the past here at Sochi. There really is only one place that you can make an easy move, and that's down into turn 2.
You stopped so early, I have to manage now. I struggle to make it to the end.
Verstappen 39.9.
And they'll give people an understanding of why those decisions were being made. That is the pace that Lewis Hamilton has at the moment, and he is getting closer to Max Verstappen, who's currently running in 2nd place, but that could be where Mercedes are aiming for Hamilton to go, and that is Daniel Ricciardo getting past Esteban Ocon. Now, was that engineered, or was that an overtake, and did Daniel Ricciardo come onto the track?
It's ever going to go well.
Yeah, it's a family show, as Valtteri Bottas is told, box, you're coming in for a pit stop, and what they'll try and do with Valtteri Bottas is cover off any threat of an undercut with Max Verstappen and with Red Bull, and he had a healthy advantage over Max Verstappen, but they want to keep that advantage and they want to keep the lead of this race.
And they just need to do a nice, calm pit stop, no risks here.
We would imagine going to get a 5-second penalty for failing to follow the race director's instructions. Key for Renault. Now Ricciardo's got past. Ocon needs to get past pretty quickly as well. Or is Sebastian Vettel going to dive into the pits? No, he's not. He's going to carry on those medium tyres. The key for Esteban Ocon is that he is very much racing Danny Kvyat in this race, so needs to clear that Ferrari. And I'm really sorry for all of our...
Esteban Ocon's coming up to the final couple of corners. Daniel Ricciardo through 17. Ocon now in the last 2. Leclerc is coming up, looking for the white line next to those green lights. That is the point where he can accelerate.
So that's Ricciardo coming past. We're now looking for the other Renault. There it is, of Esteban Ocon. He ran 3rd for 17 laps at Mugello. Did Charles Leclerc. He's been running in the podium places here again today, and he is out after his pit stop.
On the hard tyre. AlphaTauri have got Kvyat into this position where he's running in the train with the leaders. He's running in free air. He's got this comfort zone, not having to battle other people. That means, despite his tyres being 29 laps old, he's still, Crofty, running in the mid 1 minute 40s. Yeah. Compare that to people like Ocon, people like Gasly, even, who are all in the high 40s, low 41s. When Kvyat
and the crew, but it wasn't quite swift enough, and now Gasly is behind Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen is currently running in 9th place. He hasn't actually pitted yet in his 322nd Grand Prix start.
But it's a good net gain for Kvyat, though, isn't it? Yeah. Because he's ended up ahead of Gasly on a fresher set of tyres, and he's now just going to pull away from Gasly, who's unfortunately bottled up behind Kimi Raikkonen, who is yet
starting just to produce that calm, composed race at a racetrack that he likes, that we've seen in his career once or twice before.
Yeah, it'll do wonders for his confidence, won't it? I mean, I'm not sure I call this luck, because ultimately Hamilton did that to himself. You know, nobody else.
But Valtteri had no influence on it, so it's good luck in his way.
Yeah, okay. No, I'll take your point on that. But it's certainly going to help.
Ninth place then for Pierre Gasly. The Alpha Tauri gets past the Alfa Romeo. So does that make Gasly the alpha male in this battle at last?
Oh, I can see Anthony Davidson's eyes rolling. Paul di Resso's fallen off his chair.
I've been waiting all season for that one. You wait till we have Aston Martin and Alpine as well for next year. It's Class A, mate. Class A. That was a fairly easy move.
We're going to have to come up catch Ocon, what he has, and he's now going to be within DRS. So Daniel Kvyat, he's got the bit between his teeth at his home Grand Prix and a chance at more points here.
Daniel Kvyat in his home Grand Prix, where he finished 5th, of course, driving a Red Bull in Sochi. His only points finish in his home Grand Prix. Can Kvyat get up to 7th? Not on this particular occasion. As Kimi Raikkonen finally goes into the pits, and Kevin Magnus
4.7 to Leclerc, nearly there for the gap he needs with the penalty.
Well, absolutely, 5-second penalty coming for Daniel Ricciardo at the end of this race. We're riding on board with the Haas of Romain Grosjean. Antonio Giovinazzi is the car behind him, and right behind Giovinazzi comes Alex Albon, who's stopped twice in this race. 2 stop races, not the quickest way to go here in Sochi. I'm trying to think, is Charles Leclerc only man to finish on the podium? We've not really featured Lando Norris much in the last 30 laps or so, since his little tussle with Albon and with Russell, but he's running in the points, currently 10th for McLaren in this race.
Lando's tyres have done 36 laps already. He pitted on lap 3 off the Grand Prix, so he could run into trouble towards the end of the Grand Prix. I think that's what Red Bull have banked on.
Yep.
That's why they've pitted Albon, for a second time, because they're hoping that people like Lando run into trouble later on. Albon.
Danny Kvyat might be in a position to make a move. Antonio Giovinazzi might just make a move here on the Haas, as down towards turn 2 we go. Grosjean's going to have to watch himself as round the outside goes Antonio Giovinazzi. Nice move from the Italian there. It's a nod of approval from my co-commentator Karun Chandok. He's up into 13th.
Yeah, good move. Again, both drivers giving each other space there, and Giovinazzi
12 seconds pretty much he leads by. Lewis Hamilton starting to just make inroads a little bit on Max Verstappen. We're on lap 41 out of 53. There's 9 seconds to go. That gap was just over 10 seconds. And you just wonder, as Hamilton has just put in the fastest first sector on this latest lap, in a position to put in a strong challenge while they got let off after qualifying, because it is that difficult to try and do. At least make an attempt in the race.
But now, I mean, the whole area is a mess now. So the next guy who goes wide there, what path do they take?
Just do an imaginary, just line on the ground. Who knows? Who knows? That's Esteban Ocon. That's Danny. Oh no! Look, here comes Norris and Albon. Yeah. He's not gonna hold on to the points place. So both Norris and Albon move up. Albon moves into the top 10. Pierre Gasly is going to have to fight his way back to get a points finish here.
They miscalculated that.
Yeah.
I think he will. I think he should be able to get ahead of Norris, as Russell, it seems. He got ahead on lap 1, and since then he's managed to stay ahead. Russell's got DRS on him. They both had to back off to let the race leaders through.
Russell's pitted twice in this race.
Yeah, so I mean, different strategies, I know, but net at the moment, Latifi's still in front.
Yeah. For how much longer? Because Russell's got a bit of DRS coming his way on the next straight. The gap, I'm just looking at the gap between Verstappen and Hamilton. Lando Norris. Norris is putting that McLaren in a very nice position to make that defensive 9th place, and he is thwarting the 2 cars behind him. Still, Alex Albon is trying to make his way round, and he's going to have to watch it a little bit, as Alex Albon, because Gasly is absolutely chomping at the bit. As now, here goes Albon once again. Very rare you see a move going into turn 10, but on that occasion Albon tried it, didn't quite come off. You said, Karun, we haven't mentioned him much at all. Running in a very solid 4th place for Racing Point, who need those points in their battle, of course, with Renault in the championship. Renault at the moment scoring with Ricciardo and with Ocon. If Perez is driving a fine race, Karun Chandok, this afternoon, it's almost also worth pointing out that Charles Leclerc in 6th. Gasly, Lando Norris is passed by the AlphaTauri, and Gasly makes the move into turn 2 with plenty of time to spare. You can see how Norris is struggling for grip coming out of that corner, and his struggles are going to continue because here comes Alex Albon at him once more. Gasly goes up into 9th place. Norris somehow still holding on to a points finish here, but Alex Albon wants to take that away from him and is desperate, I'm sure, to get past Lando Norris.
If it finishes in this order, McLaren will be on 106, Racing Point 104, sorry, this is a battle between Giovinazzi.
Well, carry on, don't worry, because Giovinazzi's still ahead in 11th place from Kevin Magnussen.
So you're going to have McLaren 106, Racing Point 104, Renault 99, just 7 points between those 3 teams.
Meanwhile, the fastest lap of the race in a race where, you know, fortune swung his way from the outset, where he got past Max Verstappen off the line, crucially down into turn 2, and where he's managed to control this race after Lewis Hamilton pitted, and he's not looked troubled and shouldn't have looked troubled given Mercedes' pace dominance here in Sochi.
Yeah, Verstappen's not letting him fully fall asleep, is he? You know, he's having to still push on and knock out those 138s, only 5.
Not control things the way he wanted, or could it be the start of a Valtteri Bottas comeback? Is it asking a bit much, given what we've seen in the last few races?
Well, you know, one swallow doesn't a summer make, so we'll have to see if he can carry this on when we get to the Nürburgring. It's been a long time since Formula One's raced at the Nürburgring, of course, so I think it's going to be a different track, a different challenge.
Thinking that what he had to do was to come to Sochi and just start to try and impose himself in this championship battle, and he's done just that this afternoon. Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, is on a mission at the moment to steal that fastest lap away from him, but what Hamilton can't do is to steal the win away from Valtteri Bottas this afternoon. The only man to be on the podium in the last 3 Russian Grand Prix. He's on the podium this afternoon, and it's the top.
Yeah, I think again it's a nice moment to thank my critics, to whom it may concern. You.
Well, we've heard that message before, haven't we, from Valtteri Bottas?
I saw him tweeting replies to people, not tweeting, but on his Instagram page. You know, he put a post out and some people had some very not nice things to say, and he was actually replying to them. And
tyre strategy, it's all ifs and buts and maybes.
Exactly. It's impossible to tell, but what we can tell is Valtteri did win the Grand Prix, and